Hey guys, welcome back to the Hangar. In this episode, we are going to continue working on the plumbing rough-in with the plumbing supply side. Mainly, we're going to be working on where the water from the well comes in and ties into the house. I apologize for the sound in the background. It is raining right now pretty hard in Amarillo. In fact, it's flooded our entire lot and I got stuck in the mud earlier, but we are free now and we are here to start installing the rest of kind of the water supply kit aside from just the pressure tank. So in a previous video, I had just temporarily rigged up the pressure tank so that we could get a hose and water run to the travel trailer. But in this episode, I am going to try and set up a more permanent plumbing solution, and we are going to go ahead and install at least the plumbing side of an electric hot water heater that we have here, and you can't really see it on the ground. Here's part of a whole house water softener. So we are going to work on installing those pieces of kit into the utility closet that we built under the stairs. So let's hop to it. Okay, so we partially assembled the water softener. This here is the resin tank for the water softener, and we did that so that we could get a height of the unit. We also took the hot water heater out of the box so that we could gauge its height as well. And we think we have a plan in place for how we're going to tie all this stuff together. Where we have water coming up from the well, it's currently kind of teed over here and runs into the pressure tank. What we're going to do is we are going to build a raised platform so that the pressure tank sits up here, and then this water will elbow out and up, and this brass fitting on the pressure tank will be turned 90 degrees. So it will tie in to this side and exit this side. Well, hey guys, hello from the future. I am actually filming this after the fact, after I've completed the whole utility closet build, but I didn't talk about it in that last clip. But what the first thing I did was I actually built this wall under the stairs. So I have this wall here, which is just, 1, 2, 3, 4 kind of little short studs. And I did that to kind of define the area that I'm going to use for the utility closet. I wanted to be able to do that because eventually I'm going to come back in and I'm going to insulate this utility closet. So I'm going to be able to tuck some insulation up all the way here underneath the stairs. I'm going to want to insulate this wall and then insulate the back wall as well. I'll probably have some power outlets in here, and I'm considering either having like a baseboard heater in here, or maybe just hang some 100-watt light bulbs, something that'll be warm enough to keep this utility room from freezing when it gets cold in the winter. So the next clip you'll see is actually me building this wall here on this side of the utility closet. Once again, it's hello from future Zach, so let's jump back into the actual utilities and the water build. So we are going to start with building this platform that you see here that the pressure tank and the hot water heater are eventually going to sit on.
Now that the platform is built, the next step is to position the pressure tank and bring water from the well to the pressure tank. From here, it will be distributed to the hot water heater to supply hot water to the rest of the house and also cold water to the rest of the house. So now the hot water heater has been positioned into its final location, also on the platform. I decided to jump over to the hot water heater outlet, which will provide hot water to the house, so that I can run that line and have a better idea of what I needed to dodge before I continued with the cold side. So here I am plumbing in the hot water heater outlet and getting that line run over where it will tie into the hot manifold. After that, I jumped back to the outlet from the pressure tank, so this will be untreated water from the well, which will then go through a whole house water softener. So I am tying the water supply to the water softener here and planning out how I will do my bypass valve so I can bypass the water softener if I need to. Okay, here is what we got so far. So I changed my original plan of just elevating the pressure tank in that back corner and decided to go with this whole elevated platform for both the pressure tank and the hot water heater. And the reason we decided to do that was because the pop-off valve here from the pressure tank, the pop-off valve here from the top of that water heater, but also this drain pan, all of that I am going to run, tie into a drain line, which will then drain back down the kitchen vanity. So I have over here plumbed into the back a Y. So I'll run PVC all the way through here with some amount of slope behind all these utilities, and that's what I'll use to drain everything into. So with the kind of oriented pressure tank, we now have water that comes from back here. It goes down through that platform and into the slab, but water comes out, comes this way, ties into the pressure tank. On the outlet of the pressure tank, it wraps down, comes over this way, comes up. So this will be my bypass valve to go around my whole house water softener, but normal flow, it will come up through here. And we have a threaded connection here. There'll be a hose that ties to the inlet of the water softener, and then there'll be a hose from the outlet of the water softener, which will tie into this line, and it will come down here. And then that's as far as I've gotten so far. So from this T, one line will come down and tie into this line, which will feed water to the whole house. And then there'll be another T, which will then come over here, and it'll run cold all along here up and tie the cold into the hot water heater. Then the outlet of the hot water heater is here, and it comes down, wraps over this way, and at a later date, I will tie this into the hot manifold for the whole house. So what I'm working on now is I'm working on installing a expansion tank for the hot water heater, which will be on the inlet side. So I will start plumbing water supply into the hot water heater. So what I started out doing is mounting the expansion tank to the platform. Now I don't think the expansion tank was entirely necessary for me because I have the pressure tank which is feeding water to the hot water heater. I don't have any check valves in between the pressure tank and the water softener and the hot water heater. There is a check valve on my pump, but the pressure tank should suffice as essentially a giant expansion tank. That being said, the expansion tank was really cheap, so I decided it wouldn't hurt anything to go ahead and install it. So I threw it on here, and it will be in between the water softener and the hot water heater. After I had the pressure tank installed, I went ahead and started running cold water from the outlet of the water softener to the expansion tank, which will then go up to the entrance or the inlet on the hot water heater. Take note here that I also installed isolation valves on both the inlet and the outlet of the hot water heater so that I could shut those valves to remove or service the hot water heater if I ever chose to. Later, I actually go back and install a gauge on the outlet of the water softener so that I can see what the pressure is of the water before it goes into my house, and if there is a significant pressure drop from the pressure tank through the other side of the water softener. I have made some more progress, but unfortunately I did not capture a lot of it on time lapse. So what I have done is, you'll see here over on this side of the utility closet, I've added a drain line for the drain pan, which will actually go into this drain line. And what I have here, this is actually just a normal wall drain like you would install for a washing machine, and that is where the air gap fitting will go for the water softener. So the water softener, when it goes through its kind of recycle stage to try and get all of the minerals out of the resin, it'll dump water down that through an air fitting into that drain. Down here I have a P-trap for it as well. I will point out, I do recognize that this is a sanitary tee. This is supposed to be for venting only, but the only thing going down that sanitary tee is the drain for this hot water heater pan, which I don't expect to really ever use. It's just there in case something happens to the tank. It'll direct that water down, as opposed to having to direct this out a hole through the wall and dump it on the ground. I tied it into this same drain because I'm trying to minimize the number of holes that I'm putting through my wall. But anyways, that drain line goes down here, and as you see, it goes behind the utility closet, and we'll show it over here. Wraps around. I have a fitting here, but I'll talk about in a second. And then it wraps around and ties into this Y that drains into the kitchen sink. So this will be the drain line for the water softener, and if the hot water heater or the hot water tank ruptures or leaks or something and gets into that pan, then that pan will also drain down this line. Now I added this here because this is where I'm going to direct some PEX, 3/4 inch PEX, for the pop-off valves that come off of the pressure tank and the hot water heater. So the hot water heater has a pressure relief valve here, and the pressure tank has a pressure relief valve here. I'm going to tie them together and run them into that fitting. Once again, that way if the relief valves go, normally they would be directed out through a hole in the wall and dump on the ground, but I'm going to just run them down the drain to minimize the number of holes I put in my wall. So what I have accomplished here is I have tied the pop-off valves into the kitchen sink drain, which has completed the plumbing for the utility closet, with the exception of getting the water softener permanently installed into these fittings, and then hooking up the hose from the salt tank to the drain in the back there. But what I got done here is you have this pressure relief valve on the top of the hot water tank, and from it comes down here, comes over here, and you see a T, and there's also a pressure relief valve down here from the pressure tank that ties into that same relief system, and that relief valve will then go that way, flow that way, wraps its way around this corner and has an elbow here behind this corner and runs back this way and down into this drain. So why I ran it all the way over here by the sink is generally when a pressure relief valve goes, it's going to go because the tank is overpressured. So if this tank reaches, I think it's 70 psi, maybe 75 psi is where the relief valve is set to go. It's going to, as it blows down that line and it gets to here, there'll be a lot of pressure, and I want the path of least resistance to be immediately down that drain and going out to the septic. I don't want it to then empty this pressure tank, have it back feed through this drain and then come all the way back to here and back feed into the hot water heater pan. That would be the lowest exit from that line. So I'm hoping the difference in height from this hot water pan to whatever pressure loss it is just to go down to the septic, that'll be enough resistance that everything will just want to flow straight down into the septic and not backfeed water back up into the pan. Now, in the case that does happen, this is a utility room. It's under the stairs. It's not in the house. If this pan fills up and it flows over and the floor gets wet, none of this stuff it's really a big deal. So what this does is now my relief valves go down the drain. It replaced 2 holes I would have had to drill into my wall, one for the hot water heater and one for the pressure tank. So instead of having 2 penetrations into the outside, now everything just goes down to the kitchen sink drain, and hopefully drains without any problem. Once again, I don't have any anticipation that those pressure relief valves will go for any reason, but they are a safety feature and you want to make sure they're installed properly. Okay, so it is a few days later and I have made a few minor adjustments off camera that have completed all of the plumbing in the utility room, with the exception once again of permanently installing the water softener. So I'll kind of show you one more time, real quick run through. Now I've done this a lot, but water from the well comes in here, comes into the pressure tank, outlet from the pressure tank. This is the relief valve that goes down the drain. Outlet from the pressure tank will go around this way, run up this way, and come up here where there will be an option to bypass the water softener or go up here to the inlet on the water softener. Outlet of the water softener will come down here, roll through here where it has a T. This T goes to the hot water heater, and then this T goes and supplies cold water to the entire house. So I have actually completed plumbing this in with an isolation valve into the whole house. I'm going to keep that isolation valve closed for now because when I pressure test all of the water supply plumbing on the house side, I will pressure test everything up to that valve. And then I'll come back and I will also pressure test the whole utility room plumbing as well. But anyways, this will be treated water from the water softener. We'll then go down here and go into the house. Now from this T, we have water supply, cold water going to the hot water heater. It wraps around here. I have added a gauge here. So this gauge will essentially be showing what the pressure is on the discharge side of the water softener. And this gauge here will be showing what the pressure is on the discharge from the pressure tank. So I will be able to tell if there's a big pressure drop or what have you across the pressure tank just by comparing these 2 gauges. And then from here, we continue. We have another isolation valve to isolate the expansion tank if we so desired. We come up here and roll up this way. Obviously, expansion tank, roll up this way, and this is the cold water going into the hot water heater. And once again, the hot water coming out of the hot water heater. I also have isolation valves here for if I ever need to replace or remove the hot water heater for any issues. Now you will notice here, unfortunately, the hardware store didn't have any swiveling, female NPT back to PEX fittings. I ended up having to order some of them here, specially online. So at the moment, the hot water heater is hard lined in. So if I ever have to remove the hot water heater, I will have to cut these lines. And when I do that, I do have a couple of these that I'll install that will actually have swivels on them, so I don't have to cut lines to remove them in the future. So I'm just going to save these here with the hot water heater. They will get installed whenever I end up having to cut these lines. Now from the discharge of the hot water heater, hot water will then go, wraps around this way, goes through here, has once again an isolation valve before hot water gets to the house, or it goes down here and ties down here into this back manifold. Kind of easier to see here from the kitchen side, but here is the hot manifold that goes down, 1, 2, 3 lines doing hot water to the whole house, and then the cold is all this rest of this manifold that is here underneath the platform. So now with everything tied into the house, isolation valves everywhere that I could want them, the plumbing on this utility room, like I said, is done, with the exception of the final install of the water softener. I've kind of changed my plan here. I've ordered some different fittings, and I'll kind of reroute these lines so that I can tuck this water softener unit nice and tight up against this spot. So I had to buy some specialty fittings to help me do that. And I know you have seen it in a bunch of shots, and I don't think I've talked about it, but the reason that you always see that this water hose is hooked up is because at the moment we are using the pressure tank and the well water to provide fresh water to the travel trailer, which goes underneath on the other side here. So me and my wife are currently living in the travel trailer while I am finishing the rest of the house. So you see that throughout the entire video here. This garden hose is actually supplying water. Now all of the valves downstream of this are closed, so there's no pressure. There's only pressure on this line up to this block valve and this block valve here. Nothing else is pressurized on this system. All right, guys, that is going to do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and tune in. We'll catch you on the next one.